bottom right corner, you'll see a fact button with a little fact word and a question mark. So on MyBalbo, it's really, really important for us to raise the level of conversation that we're having across our nation. So that button right there is for people to use if they hear people talking about something and they need them to go into a greater degree of detail. If they need them to cite their source, if they need them to actually circle back and give them some more detailed clarification. So if you click on that button, you'll see some question marks fly up. Everyone knows who's in the room that somebody is fact checked, and so it just provides the culture within MyBalbo to be one of accountability, one of a higher degree of conversation, and one that's just really, really exciting for everyone across our nation. So, really excited for that. I'm going to give you guys just a few more seconds to hop in, and we're going to get the conversation started. So,
Okay.
people are texting me like, "Hey, I'm hopping on, I'm hopping on." So I'm just like, "Okay, cool. We'll give you a second." All right. Ooh. All right. I think Nathan hopped off for a second. He should be back. You text him. Hey, hey. There you are. There you are. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So happy Thursday to everyone. If you have been tuning in all this week, we've been having really powerful conversations with people across the market, really just exemplars of their different expertise. And we are excited today to be with Emmy nominated writer and director Nathan Hale Williams. So thank you so much for being with us. Nathan Hale's from Chicago, but we met in New York City several years ago and continued to just really form a bond in LA. And I had the pleasure to just really watch his work grow and blossom, right before my eyes and get to cheer from the sidelines. And it's been a true pleasure to watch you continue to execute with excellence, continue to broaden and I guess bring up the level of what you provide to the world. I just think it's been super inspiring. And truth be told, I have actually heard people talk about you when you're not in the room about how tenacious you are and how audacious you are, how it really inspires them. And I'm like, that's real talk. And so it's been an honor, and it's an honor to have you on today's roundtable. So thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm just so excited to be here. As I mentioned, I'm a little under the weather, but I would not have missed this opportunity. I love what you and your family are doing with this app. I think it's such a great resource tool, especially with the upcoming elections. I think you all are at the forefront of bringing politics to the masses in a way that digests it. I think a lot of people get really scared of politics because they are not informed, and I think my Balbo is a way to make sure that and in mass that more and more people are informed. And so I just applaud your efforts. So anytime that I can come on and support you, I think I was one of the first people to download and join the community, and I look forward to engaging and having this conversation today. So thank you for supporting my work and bringing me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the really, what we learned more and more, what's becoming very apparent is the intersection between politics and culture, politics and society, and just all the different sort of like ways in which our everyday lives, lived experience, and art intersect with politics. I mean, I think even today we think about, the books that are available for people to access in schools, the movies that are available in public libraries. And so when we talk about art, when we talk about all these different sort of creative endeavors, they don't exist in a vacuum, and so it's really important for us to have these conversations and realize that they have a place in sort of like civic discussion, right? And so that's why you're here, because we know that we are not, we are sort of the intersections of all these different things that we bring to the fore. And today we're going to talk about filmmaking. And I personally am a huge fan of filmmakers, amazing screenwriting. I used to do some acting back in the day. Back in the day, I
We
used
got
to
to
do
get
some.
you back on screen.
Right, exactly. Right. So I used to do some back in the day, and so I really, really have an appetite for just really powerful films. Films have always been a means for me personally to be affirmed in ways that I did not know I could be affirmed. I think with the internet now, people have a lot more access to different sort of lived experiences. But when we came up, it was oftentimes films were the first touch touchstone for us to really see ourselves and experience, these experiences that we thought were just unique to ourselves. So I'm gonna stop there and let you kind of just tell everyone about a little bit about your journey and how you got to the point where you were, the founder and of iN-Hale Entertainment. So
Well, great, but I want to touch on something you said at before that about the intersection of politics and art, and I think now is the intersection is even more profound because we have a lot of people trying to ban art. We have a lot of people trying to ban books, trying to ban movies, and this kind of fascist approach to what people can consume and what they can learn from art, right? And to your point, a lot of times that's when we first see ourselves doing things, right? Is through movies, through books. And so, and that's a lot of times that's also how we consume our history and learn about our history is through art. So if you want a group of people not to know about their history or about themselves or see themselves, the first thing you do is you attack the art. And so I think this discussion is not only timely, but also important for people to really push back on that, because art is a way that we see ourselves. Art is a way that we heal ourselves. Art is a way that we empower ourselves. And to your main question of how I got here, I remember watching The Color Purple when I was younger, when it first came out, because I'm that old. And I remember, kind of dissecting the colors and the music and the performances, and in a way that was not like a regular viewer. And if I, if I'm looking back then, that is when my, that 10-year-old, 11-year-old Nathan, that was when my filmmaking desire started budding, right? But at the time in 1986 and 87, I was a, young black boy in the south side of Chicago, and there was no internet, and there was no resource for me to see people like me that were actually filmmakers, right? So there were black filmmakers then. There was Oscar Michaud and Melvin Van Peebles, and there was a bunch of filmmakers then, but I didn't have access to them. So I wasn't able to see myself doing the behind the scenes work. So I thought all I could do was what I saw, which was be an actor. And I did well in school. I went to great schools, and so being an actor was kind of like a hobby in the back of my mind. So I started acting then, and I would do local plays in Chicago, and I was booking commercials and minor roles here and there, but it wasn't something that I considered to be a real career. So I had made up my mind that I would be a doctor. There's only one big problem with that. I don't like hospitals. I don't like sick people, and I don't like the sight of blood. So I don't know what in the heck I was thinking I was going to be a doctor. So by the time I got to college, my first year in college, I was a biomedical engineering major, and had intended on being a neurosurgeon. And literally, the only reason why I wanted to be a neurosurgeon is because I looked up how much money they made, and that's I wanted to make that much money, right? But over the course of that year, I realized that in my classes, one of these kids was doing his own thing, and that kid was me. And I changed my major to dance. And then my mother was like, "Well, you're not going to go to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign to be a dancer. If you want to be a dancer, you go to New York, go to Juilliard or someplace like that." And so I wasn't really keen on leaving school because I loved my school and my friends were there. And so I double majored in communications and theater, right? And so I read this article my senior year of college about this woman named Deborah Martin Chase. And she, at the time, was running Whitney Houston, my favorite entertainer of all time, her production company, Brown House Productions. And they were getting ready to do Cinderella starring Brandy. And in the article, Deborah talked about her job as a producer. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And so she also talked about how much law school she had gone to Harvard Law School, and how much law school had helped her in her job as a producer. And so, I came home from a summer in LA, which was kind of crazy. That's a whole nother story, a whole nother day. I kind of took the LSAT cold and decided I wanted to go to law school because Deborah Martin Chase had gone to law school to be a producer. And so I did. I went to GW in DC, and, I was always the kind of oddball out. I did really well in law school, actually. But, my first year of law school, I carried a red Rugrats lunchbox because I really couldn't afford to buy lunch every day because my mom and I were paying for it because I had messed up my credit and all this kind of stuff. And so, um,
Shout out to
but I
mom
never,
though. Shout out to Mama Joyce. We love her.
yes, hello, Mama J, Mama J, Mama J. And whereas everyone else in law school wanted to go to big firms and do all that, I really went to law school to be a producer. And fast forward, I was practicing in New York, and I met this guy named Maurice Jamal, who has recently passed away in the last month, who was fresh off of, may rest in peace, brilliant creative mind, who was fresh off the directing team from the Dave Chappelle Show. And he wanted to do this movie. He was casting for this movie called The Ski Trip, and my now business partner, but then my agent, Richard Pelzer, sent me on an audition for The Ski Trip. This is the Cliff's Notes version of it all, but it's a more longer version. Um, and I booked the ski trip as an actor to play the role of Byron. And in the process of rehearsals, I realized we didn't have any paperwork. And so I made him a deal and I said, I will do all of the legal work for the movie if you make me a producer. And so he made me a producer. I did all of the legal work. I also starred in the film. And from there, iN-Hale Entertainment was born because I became his partner. And then we went on to do a film called Dirty Laundry. And then with my producing partner, Sean Johnson, I had my very first television show that I created called My Model Looks Better Than Your Model, which gave Bevy Smith her first job on television. Eva Marcille was the host of it. She just won America's Next Top Model. And then, as they say, the rest is history. And then for a long time, I was a producer. I was solidly a producer. And then my mother called me in my mid 30s and she said, you've been writing since you were 8 years old. I'm tired of you producing other people's stuff. You should write and produce your own stuff. And so I made my writing directorial debut, a little bit later in my career with a movie called Love for Passion. And I literally have been writing, directing, producing my own stuff ever since.
Wow. I love that story that you gave because I think when people look at people who have garnered success, and you have, they often think that they have in the back of their mind that there is like they just assume that there was a sort of like there were certain like milestones, if you will, to get to that, right? And they assumed that it was like an easy sort of linear trajectory. And I think what you just showed is that, like, life is, is multifaceted. And what I really love about your story is because one of my godfathers told me this, and I live by it now. And it was really hard for me to, like, sort of accept this was that when God has blessed you with multiple blessings, he intends for you to use all those blessings. He didn't bring you on the world to just use one blessing. And I think that's one of the great things about you, Nathan, is that like you've always been multi hyphenated. You've always been a Renaissance man of sorts who's been able to be, who's done so many things and does so many things well. And I think that that is affirming for a lot of people who feel as though like, okay, maybe I didn't take the original, the sort of path most taken, with regard to how to get to this endpoint. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. I love quotes, and but I always jack up the quotes. That's why I write them down.
Right.
There's an Irma Bombeck quote that's basically that she intends to use up every talent that God gave her by the end of this life, right? And when people ask me what makes me a good writer or what makes me a good writer director, it really is the totality of my experiences. It is because I was a ballet dancer. It is because I actually was an actor and I'm a trained actor. It is because I played the piano. It is because I've lived in New York, DC, Miami, LA, and Chicago. It is the totality of all of that that I think makes me empathetic and sympathetic, but also gives me a way to talk to actors, a way to talk to my DP, a way to talk to other creatives on my team that
Period.
I can understand where they're coming from and they can understand where I'm coming from. Steven
Mhm.
Spielberg, who is one of my two favorite directors, and I guess we'll get into that later. Gina Prince Bythewood is the other, says that he'd much rather have someone who understands story over who understands the mechanics of everything on set, right? I don't know anything about a camera. I have a great DP that I work with all the time. His name is Brian Bradley, who is brilliant, but he speaks Nathan. And so I can say, Brian, I wanted to feel like, the sun setting over Cairo, or I wanted to feel like a dark night in Chicago, and he gets it. I can't tell him which lens to use. I can't tell him how to light it, but we speak the same language. And I think that is because I've had this, very varied and diverse group of experiences that allow me to talk to other creatives to get what I want creatively in my mind to reality.
Awesome. And this is just a little side plug. He mentioned some of the things he's done. Nathan is also an author. I've read one of his books, A Lady Sue Lunch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was an absolutely amazing story. So just adding an additional hyphen to your already multi-hyphenated name. I do want to say that I think, well, circling back to you talking about the totality of your experience, sort of like coloring, how you navigate the world. I think that that's really important because I do know personally, just watching you move, I feel like what you are able to do really well is have presence without sucking the air out the room. I think that's a hard thing to navigate because I think people think that oftentimes in order to have presence, they have to take from people or they have to be the center or they have to somehow like, I don't know. They just feel like there's a sort of power dynamic that sort of makes them have to do certain things. But I think with you, you have really mastered the art of having presence and still being like very empathetic, like you mentioned, very affirming to other people. And I think that's a beautiful thing about you when you step into spaces. So I just want to say that as well.
I, I appreciate that, Jonathan, because that is a goal of mine, and I don't say this arrogantly. I say this as a matter of fact. My shine is easy, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't have to work towards that. And so because of that, I can share it. And my goal in a room is to, really amplify other people to share their shine, right? There is another quote, Marion Williamson, is that when you shine, you give other people encouragement to, shine their own excellence, right? And so I don't have to fight for that, right? I don't have to fight for shine. I've been affirmed, my life. I come from an affirming family. I'm surrounded by affirming friends. I've had the same friends my whole life. And so when I go into a room, I don't have to fight for attention. I really want to see other people shine. And it really is a goal of mine because I like to see people do well. I get a kick out of seeing people successful and helping them be successful in ways that I can. It really gets my rocks off. So I'm glad that you said that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Speaking on the subject, if you will, of today's discussion, torch bearing. So, in regard to filmmaking, I'll move to the next question. How would you define sort of torch bearing within filmmaking, and has it always been a part or of your creative ethos, if you will?
So I'll answer that twofold. One, I think that any creative person has a torch to bear, whether it's your own personal torch, you have something to say, right, through the art. And that's really what creative expression is about, is expressing whatever you have to say to the world or whatever you have to share with the world through the art. And that's the torch that you have to bear. And it could be a myriad of things. It doesn't have to be social justice. It doesn't have to be even related to anybody else, but it is about your personal experience in this world that you want to share with everyone else. And I think that every creative person that shares their art with the world is bearing a torch. For me personally, all of my work had the through line of my work is that it has somehow connected to the greater good, right? Somehow connected of elevating voices, amplifying, empowering people that are marginalized. I always say that my work is like a spoonful of sugar, but you don't know that you're even getting medicine because you're because it's wrapped up in entertainment and you're having a good time. But all of my work has some kind of social justice, social community slant to it, but you don't really even know it because you're being entertained. And
Right.
that's important to me because I think that. There's so much in our world that needs some TLC, right? There's so many issues that we need to address. And I feel that if everyone takes on two, right? You take on two issues, right? And you make those your issues and you make that your calling and your mission, we can do so much in the world, right? Because you can't take on them all. It's impossible, right? You will be overwhelmed if you try to take on everything. But if we just take on two or more, if you have the capacity, and really address those issues and make those your calling, and that's what I've done in my work. And so I'm always dedicated to empowering and uplifting people to live the fullness of their existence. the Queen icon Tina Turner passed away yesterday, and I used the day and her life as an example of perseverance and resilience, and I needed that message, right? I even went and started reading about Buddhism. I'd kind of visited it before, but not really in depth. And it's been a challenging year for me creatively and in business, and I just used her life as a torch for me to keep going, right? And so through her art and through sharing her personal story of triumph and overcoming the craziest, life when she was with Ike, she has empowered not only me but just thousands, if not millions of people to keep going. So that was the torch that she had to bear. And I think all artists have some kind of torch to bear. And mine is, through social justice and uplifting people to live their best lives, no matter what we perceive to be our flaws or shortcomings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me check these comments really quick. I saw some people, heard somebody say, love it, facts. I think somebody did a little fact check thing as facts. People are saying they love it. Howdy, howdy, hi from Florida. Hey, peace and love, everyone. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Tracy. Thank you guys for joining the conversation. We are here with Hale Williams, just talking about the power of cinema as truth telling, as affirming, as self evident, really, and just edifying for so many different parties. And Nathan, you just mentioned sort of like the struggle, if you will, of just the creative process. And, I love that you mentioned that because it just shows people that, irrespective of where you are in your career, that art is sort of like it's like an ongoing sort of process, right? And so that it has its own sort of I guess it's something you have to sort of meld at throughout your life. It's not something that you ever sort of really perfect. So how would you like sort of instruct someone who is struggling with their writing process? Especially those people who are trying to sort of mitigate or sort of like juggle crafting what they think is a story that they want to tell versus a story that they think people want to hear.
Right. I think one of the biggest barriers, I'll answer that in a bunch of, I think one of the biggest barriers to the creative process is our own insecurity about our work, right? And that we believe that when we've put the pen to paper, that it's supposed to be perfect. And, writing is rewriting, right? And so I think we come to the work being very self-conscious about what other people are thinking, will think about the work, right? And so that presents this barrier of creativity. And really, the true work is freeing yourself of that, right? Freeing yourself of the self consciousness of what other people will think about your work, and also, and I think one of the ways that you do that is making it methodic. And Mara Brackett-Keel, who I love, I interviewed her, over 10 years ago, about her process, and she talked about her one of her professors at Northwestern talking about just putting your butt in the seat and writing no matter what, right? Because, and there's this book called The Artist's Way that I'm revisiting right now. I thought I had read it, but turns out I hadn't read it, and I'm going through the process again of doing the morning pages. And one of the things about the morning pages is that it forces you to overcome this self-consciousness around writing, right? Fast forward, and at the end of 21 and into 22, I was invited and selected to be a part of Mara Brackett-Keel's Writers Colony, and and I just saw her every day go in and write. And that gets you past the hump of the self-consciousness around writing, right? And just going and doing it. And the more you do it, the less self-conscious you are about it. And you realize that your first draft is going to be horrible anyway. It's going to be the worst thing that you write. And don't expect it to be anything more than that. But once you get it out, then you can, the movie I'm getting ready to do now, I had written a complete script, and I didn't like it when I heard it. And so I started over. But if I hadn't written that complete film, I wouldn't gotten to the film that I really wanted to, the thing I really wanted to say,
Yeah.
and the film that I'm going to do now. And so I think the best way to get over it is just to do the thing, and then do the thing again, and then keep doing the thing, because you flex your muscles. It's just like working out. The more you flex your muscles, the more they grow, and the more you get over the self-consciousness around what other people are going to think about the writing. And I'm at the point in my creative career that once I like it, I really don't care what anyone else thinks. And I don't mean that selfishly, but I mean that's my barometer of whether I'm done. not done, because you're always tweaking, you always can make it
Yeah.
better, you're always striving to be,
Hmm.
excellent.
Hmm.
But whether or not anyone else likes it, is when I really like it. If I really like it and it's saying what I got to say, I know what I want to say, then I'm good.
Yeah, I mean that's a powerful orientation to have. It sits you in the center of sort of like your own happiness, and it also requires a certain stillness too, right? And so you're not really reacting and sort of like going with the ebbs and flows of whoever is that person that you're in that space with when you're asking for the criticism. So I think that's a really powerful place to be, and I think a lot of people who are listening, I know for sure there are several people in the room who are actually writers themselves and are looking to enter into to the space professionally. And so I think oftentimes there is that sort of self, doubt, if you will, about like if whether it's good enough, whether it will be received. But I think, entering it from that space of, that space of this is my work. This is, something that I have to be okay with first, and that sort of being the entry point from which you step into the world. I think that's a really powerful place to be at. So I know you mentioned Mara Baraka Kill. For those who aren't familiar with her work, she has tons of amazing work in her portfolio. But Girlfriends is one of the ones that I grew up on. So if you've seen Girlfriends and you've seen her work before,
Being Mary
um,
Jane, The Game, I mean, just
exactly.
Love Is, it just goes on. She's prolific and profound and just wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So, looking back, so you mentioned Mara. Looking back on your career, on your life, really. So, what would you say? Who would you say has been some of the biggest influences on your career with regard to film and writing and directing?
As I mentioned, Steven Spielberg and Gina Prince Bythewood are my favorite directors. And the reason why they are is because they, first of all, I just love the stories that they tell and how they tell them. You can always tell that they have put compassion and
Mhm.
empathy and sympathy, and they are thoughtful about their characters and they're thoughtful about the craft.
Mhm.
But they've done such a breadth of work. You know what I mean? Both of them. Steven
Mhm.
Spielberg will give you Schindler's List, and he'll also give you E.T. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Gina Prince
Mhm.
Bythewood will give you The Woman King, and she'll give you Love and Basketball. And so the breadth of their work is what I aspire to do. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one kind of genre of film. If anything, I want people to know me from my work about the things that it makes them feel, and how it changes people's minds about certain topics. So they have been great inspirations of mine. Amara has been a great inspiration of mine in television, just because I love her characters. They're real. They're women that I know. They're people that I know. And I think that that's such a great testament to someone who is connected to the work in a real, authentic way. And I always want my work to be authentic. I love Aaron Spelling.
Mhm.
I know that's a name that people don't talk about anymore, but
Mhm.
Aaron Spelling did Dynasty and all those, and just how prolific Aaron Spelling has been.
Yeah.
His great work. Greg Berlanti. One of my favorite shows is Brothers and Sisters. I really like people who are not pigeonholed into any kind of one genre, or that you don't know what to necessarily expect from their work. And I aspire to have the same from my work, that one day you will get All Boys Aren't Blue, the next day you'll get Love Will Save the Day, and then the next day, who knows what you'll get. It's depending on what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually really powerful to hear. For everyone who's in the room, how about you? Just in the comments, just name a movie or a director that's inspired you. And so we'd love to see what you guys have to say for that as well. So Nathan, as we come to sort of the tail end of the conversation, would love for you to let everyone know about what they can expect from you next, what you have down the pipeline.
Yeah, great. And so, as I mentioned, I'm getting ready to shoot a writing. I mean, I wrote the film already, but I'm getting ready to direct and produce a feature film called Love Will Save the Day, and I'm super excited about it. It is my love letter to Black women. It is my love letter to my hometown of Chicago. It is a comedy with a lot of drama, but with a lot of heart. The feedback that I've gotten on the script has been amazing. So I know it's singing the notes that I wanted to sing, and I'm ready to, to get into production this summer on it. We have some great attachments in terms of cast. Sherry Shepard's attached to it, Pauletta Washington, who I've worked with on films before, Christina Anthony, some other people that are just who are my own, who I'm fans of first and foremost, but who I just love their work. That's upcoming. I have some TV shows in the pipeline. I'm presently writing a new book called Dear Diversity, What Went Wrong. It's a diversity book. And then just other things that I got in the pipeline. But those are the main things that you can look for that are coming up from me.
Okay, awesome. And now, where can people find and follow you?
So on Instagram, I am Nathan H. Williams. That's my primary social media now. I really kind of don't do Twitter so much anymore because of the sale and all of that kind of stuff. But Instagram, I love. I'm on it constantly. So you can follow me there. The website for my company is called iN-Hale ENT, and that's INHALEENT.com. And you can, browse some of my work there. You can access some of my books there, links to my books, but primarily on Instagram, Nathan H. Williams, or iNHALEENT.com.
Oh, I love that. And look, and I would be chagrined if I did not let Nikki, who I know who's a writer, she wrote a question just now. If you could just quickly just answer her question. She says, "How do you balance your creative projects when you have more than one script you want to produce, and how do you choose what to work on first?"
So, that's a great question because I do a lot of different things. I do write books, I do television, I do film. In terms of writing, I only am writing one thing at a time, so I might be ideating around different things at the same time, but I'm not writing multiple projects at the same time. So, right now, I just submitted the first 5 chapters of the book. And so I was only really writing that. I'm creating a new TV show, and so I'll move to writing that while those chapters are being reviewed. And then so I'm only literally writing one thing at a time. But I think that this business, especially if you are independent creative entrepreneur, you have to have multiple irons in the fire. And so I might, even though I'm writing just one thing, I'm doing the business of everything else, right? So I'm in pitch meetings, I'm in budget development meetings, I'm in production meetings, and all of that. And then also I carve out writing time as sacred, right? So when I'm writing something, right now my phone is on constant. Block notification. So like you can't even call me, and you have to text me first because I'm in writing mode. And so I take that time as sacred, and I block it out of my calendar. I don't let anyone schedule anything else. I'm one of those people like Spike Lee I can write about 3 to 4 hours a day, and then that's my max. I'm not a person that can all night it. I can't, cram it. I write in the morning, and that's it. And I block out those hours, and they are sacred to me. And I don't let anyone interrupt those hours, no matter what. But I'm literally only writing one thing at a time. But I'm doing the business of multiple things at one time. Vivica Fox, who's a dear friend of mine, and we have a TV show together that we're developing, once said to me that this is show biz. The more you know about the biz, the more you get to show. And so I'm often doing the business part of it, primarily outside of the writing, but only writing one thing at a time.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time out to answer Nikki's question. I love that you said that your writing time is sacred, because not only is the time sacred, but also the product that you create is sacred. And as somebody who's just been able to watch you from the sidelines, I am here to say that your work is sacred. Your purpose on this earth is sacred, and to make sure that you continue to keep yourself enveloped with people who see you as that way, because we have to protect our artisans, guys. I think they really are torch bearers, and they really do help shine a light on their community at large and their communities at large. So I just want to take the time to thank you for the work that you've done, the work that you're continuing to do, and I cannot wait to see all the things that are coming to the fore for you, Nathan, and all the very many people that you touch. So thank you so much for joining us today on MyBalbo. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely, guys. And make sure
Hi,
you follow Nathan
Stacy.
on MyBalbo as well. Make sure you follow him, guys. If you click the participant button, you'll see that there's a follow button next to everybody's name. Make sure you follow everyone. I think Ceci raised